Welcome back to Nick Lenz, comic corner classics, lots of non-classics. This is episode number 1728 and Doubleshot number 1622. I have one DC trade by Neil Adams and one Marvel trade, which is one of the crossover stuff. First up is Neil Adams. We have Batman versus Ra's al Ghul. Yep. First, got to point out, the artwork is fantastic. Neil Adams does a great job with it. The problem with this is by far, of all Neil Adams stuff I reviewed so far, I reviewed Batman Odyssey, Deadman. Let's see, I'm trying to think though. There's Superman, Comedy of the Superman. I have reviewed that. That was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed that. But this book, wow, this book was... How should I put this? This book was somewhat of a mess. This was also, I could think of, the first book. Actually, I think it was the second book I could think of where he's written Damian Wayne, Batman's biological son. Yes, because the first time I could think of he wrote him was probably for Deadman, which was really good. Now, this book is so scratching your head all of the time, like, wait, is he Batman? No. Is he Batman? No. Is he Batman? No. It's like, and then you have Bruce and Damian show up and admit they're not Batman and Robin to two people they've known for decades. Yes. Oh yeah, and Ra's al Ghul in here is a professor. And Batman's had this line of, he's a liar. He's also a freaking terrorist too. Like, okay, first of which, how the heck does Ra's al Ghul be a professor? That makes no freaking sense at all. I mean, I get the reason why Neil Adams wants to feature Ra's al Ghul. He created the damn character, so he has every right to use him. Also, Man-Bat is here. And his wife, Francine. Who's their she-bat form. Yes. Now, you're probably thinking, has Neil Adams ever written or drawn Francine's she-bat form? Part of this? No, not that I could think of. That's the thing. I mean, and apparently, Nightwing apparently didn't know the fact that, he asked Ra's, how the heck did you know about the Batcave? If you're wondering how the heck he knew about it, Man-Bat told him. That's how the heck he found out about it. Oh yeah, and apparently Bruce Wayne is not Batman. I'm like, and there's also multiple Batmans? Like, what the heck is this, Neil? Like, I love the artwork you do for this book. I love it. It's really good. I like some of the dialogue in here, but man, the story for this thing was so confusing to read. By far the most confusing Neil Adams book I have ever read. I mean, the cover says, Batman 1, Batman 2, Batman 3. Okay. Yeah. And that's the main gist of this thing. I was so confused reading this thing because, yes, I did read what was coming out. And I was okay with it per se, but I'm just confused reading it all as a whole. The artwork, 10 out of 10. The story, I want to be nice to Neil. I'm going to give him, for the writing for this book, I'm going to give it a 8. Yes, an 8 out of 10. Bit low for a New Adams book, you might you say. Yes, because the book is very confusing. Let's see New Adams again. Maybe he can explain why the heck there's multiple different Batman in this book. Heck, he brings back the caveman Batman from Batman Odyssey, which I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah, and apparently, the book is not even focused on Batman at all. A lot of it focused on Nightwing. Like, why just call it Nightwing? Well, because, Neil Adams never wrote much for Nightwing. He done a lot of Batman, so there's that. Alright, next up it is King in Black, Planet of the Symbiotes. This collects the 3-issue miniseries, Planet of the Symbiotes, and the the Black Knight one-shot. Yep. Now, these are your writers for the Planet of the Symbiotes miniseries, which, by the way, this is a series of one-shot stories set during the events of King in Black. And here's the thing. Ghul does appear in these books. Well, he appears in a couple of the stories here. Now you have Che McLean Chapman, who does the Scream story, Frank Terry, Mark Burden, Jeffrey Thorne, who is the current writer of Green Lantern, Steve Orlando, and Rodney Barnes. The artwork for the miniseries is done by Garo Benito de Vinovia, Daniel S. Baroth, Kyle Holtz. Met this guy, really nice person, in person. By the way, he's the guy who created the character The Hood, aka Parker Robbins. Yep, he created him. And according to him, he's supposed to be the villain of second movie, but they changed it to whatever they did for the movie. Gerardo Savada, Victor Neva, and Juan Badalia, I think it's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry if I mispronounced her names. The Black Knight one-shot is done by Cy Spurrier and artwork by Jesus Saz. The Black Knight one-shot is simply Black Knight in Hong Kong team with Arrow and the Swordsman and the Sword Hero to take on a bunch of symbiotes. Really fun one-shot. Then you bring in the fact that he was fired from Avengers, though it basically brings back his empathy makes him crazy, though the way the artwork draws the Ebony Blade, it's like they changed his appearance for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but they did. Of course, this would later lead to a mini-series for Black Knight, which in the mini-series, he dies and his daughter takes the mantle of the Black Knight, though he comes back at the end of the mini-series. I will eventually view that at some point. As for Planet of the Symbiotes, there are multiple different stories in here. The first story in the book is focused on Scream, who, of course, is the story is done by Clay McLean Chapman, who actually wrote the Scream comic book. Which, here's a fun fact for you. This was the very next appearance of Scream right after the cancellation of an ongoing series. You're thinking, really? Yes, really. And in my opinion, I think that the writer himself should do a mini-series where he wraps up, and he basically just continues what he wanted to do for that ongoing series, because the series was abruptly cut off thanks to the pandemic a couple years ago, and the series story was never finished. Like, he could do it here, but nope, it's King Black, so we gotta do that. Yep, the artwork is really good here. Also, Andy in her Scream form looks hot. Yep. Yeah, it's really fun. There was introduced a character named Danny who ends up becoming, well, toxic. Yeah, there's stuff in here with Ravencroft too in this issue. Yes, Ravencroft. Call goes to Ravencroft. And just stuff involving Ravencroft itself. The next issue is focused on American Kaiju, who I believe it was a character from U.S. Avengers. This is done by Mark Dunn and artwork by Kyle Holtz. Hornet is, of course, Holly Brown, who was formerly the Prowler. And I think this was his first appearance since his solo book got canceled. Yep. American Kaiju is simply put just the American Kaiju beat a bunch of symbiotes. Really fun story. In the case of the story involving Holly Brown, this feels like a regular Holly Brown story. And here he is, like, he puts in the costume, but not fully per se. He puts in the helmet a little bit later. And here he is as the Hornet. After this, his next official appearance after this will be in the Spider-Man Beyond storyline. Yes, seriously, that's the next time EVP appears after this. But a really good story to a story that is not very well liked. Yep. And here you go, issue 3. Now, the Toxin issue is basically how the current host Toxin got his symbiote. It's basically like a Danny from the Scream story. And there's also a story in here featuring Cloak and Dagger, which is quite interesting. Yes. My only guess is the reason why they included Cloak and Dagger, because their characters first appeared in the Spider-Man comic book, and they've been associated with Spider-Man for years. So, of course, those are symbiotes. Scream makes sense. Ravencroft makes sense. I would say probably the only story in this mini-series that makes no real sense at all is American Kaiju. Yeah, his involvement in here, like, my only guess is the reason why they threw him in here, and this is just my personal theory, is because Marvel had this story, and since this was an anthology book, I guess they figured, though, why not? Yep. But yeah, great tie-in. In a future Comic Corner, I will be discussing another King of Black tie. I love King of Black. It's an absolute great story. Can you believe the story concluded almost a year ago? Yes, really. And the weird thing was, this is the only big superhero event for Marvel last year because, by the way, I give this book a 9.5 out of 10. If you think about it, there wasn't a lot of really big events last year. I'm like, they just had that and a few small events. I would say the biggest event they had last year, aside from this, was War of the Bounty Hunter for Star Wars books. Of course, there was also stuff like Extreme Carnage, which followed right after this, which that was a series of one-shots. You could say it's a mini-event. There's also have our Gala, which led to some relaunches for the X books. And I think that was it. Because I couldn't... Well, the stuff with the Amazing Spider-Man happening last year as well, with Nick's Mention, which was really good, by the way. Yeah, but if you think about it, aside from King of Black, a lot of the air events were like very small, very self-contained, didn't last very long. I think Hellfire Gala lasted for like a month across the X-Men books. Covered pretty much all of them. War of the Bounty Hunters was only just a few months, and it was a 5-issue miniseries that had all 4 main ongoing books. You know, like Star Wars, Darth Vader, Dr. Aphra, and Bounty Hunters, all tie into it. The only ongoing series for Star Wars that did not tie into it was Star Wars High Republic because it was in the past. Yep, it did. Yeah. Last year was kind of weird, if you think about it. Yes, because, like, in 2020, what did we get? Empire, Iron Man 2020. Well, you had the Infinite Destiny Angels, but that was also, like, Extreme Carnage for a series of one-shots. And this was only just a couple of years ago, mind you, but if you think about it, aside from Iron Man 2020 and Empire, well, you could say that King of Black did start that year in December, but that started late in the year. It mostly got about the first portion of last year. Yeah. But Marvel had a very interesting year last year. Not many crossovers, not big. I would say this is the biggest one. They started big with this because over the years they had events start up the year, they had some big blockbuster events. Last year they didn't have one. Well, for all the main Marvel books, they just had War of the Bounty Hunters, which is really good. I love War of the Bounty Hunters. Really good story. I've only reviewed just the main miniseries, not one, and I reviewed the Bounty Hunters tie-in. I'm going to review the rest of it soon, but yeah, so that's going to be pretty much it for this particular review. Stay tuned for next review, which is going to be the case study of Thanatos, and one more Comic Corner for tonight, and that'll probably be it. I'll probably have at least about a few videos to do tomorrow. Okay, next video. Bye.